We'll just wait for some people to join us. Check the connection's all right. Let's just see here just now. Hello, everybody. We're just going to wait for a few people to join us before we start. Hello, can see everyone coming in just now. Hello. So to introduce myself just now, so I'm Harry. I'm the trans, non-binary and intersex engagement officer at Opening Doors London. And my pronouns are he and him, if you want to refer to me as those. So Opening Doors London, as many of you know, is the UK's largest charity for LGBTQ people over 50, and we provide support materials, activities and befriending and training for LGBTQ people in the UK. I run the trans, non-binary intersex group, which will meet once a month, and the next one is the 15th of July. So if you're trans over 50 and would like to attend that, you can send an email to info@openingdoorslondon.org.uk and we'll put you in touch, or just send a DM to us and we'll sort that out. So many of the books that we'll be discussing tonight with Juno Roche, who I'll invite just after this introduction, are published by Jessica Kingsley Publishers. I've got just a few of Juno's books here. And our members at ODL get a discount from Jessica Kingsley using the discount code ODL21. So if you're wanting to buy any of the books that we mentioned today from them, you can do there. And if you're wanting to ask a question to Juno, we are more than happy to take questions. Just drop them into the comments below, and providing that they're respectful, we'll get those answered for you. So tonight is a special event. Juno is not shy. She's a writer and campaigner and a personal hero of mine. Juno's talked about her transness, her body, living with HIV, and most recently wrote about growing older as a trans person. Her books, Queer Sex, Trans Power and Gender Explorers, have been hugely influential in the way that we talk about and think about trans bodies, ourselves, and have been influential for trans youth. More recently, Juno has written a chapter which I found very interesting and inspiring, called As We Grow Older, in the book 35 Voices on the Future of LGBTQ+ Rights, which is published by Penguin, and has just finished writing another book as well. So I'm super excited to speak to Juno about those. So I'm just going to see if Juno has sent us a request. I think I saw that just now. Juno, if you're able to send us another request, and I will... Here we go. Let's add Juno in just now. Here we go. Thanks, everybody, for joining. We're just going to try and just get Juno in here. See if this works. Juno, I'm sending you a request if you're just watching here. And the technology is not the greatest sometimes. If you've got any questions for Juno when this event starts, please just put them in the comments, and we'll try and get those answered for you. Oh, Juno, I keep sending you a request. I can see that you're here. It says unable to join. I'm sending you another request. If you're able to click onto it somehow, or you can send... here we go. Hello, Juno.
Fabulous.
There we
Am
go.
I there now?
Yes, you're here. So nice to see you. Where are you speaking from just now?
I am. Hold on a sec. I've just done something really weird to my camera. Is it possible for me to go up? No, it's not possible, is it? It's not possible for me to swap places with you and go up the top.
No, I'm sorry. I don't think so. But
That's
you're live,
okay.
you're here with us.
Brilliant. So I am in. I'm in Andalusia. I'm in Spain.
How is that with the pandemic just now?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's been really. Hold on 2 seconds. I'm just getting rid of that. It's been tough. It's been really. It's been like I suppose for like everyone really. Like I really felt like I had like skin. I've said this to a couple of people. Like I lived through the AIDS pandemic, and for quite a lot of the time with AIDS, what used to be described as full blown AIDS. And so I really felt like I'd be really fully prepared for like a pandemic. I felt like I felt like I'd be really robust and really kind of capable. And actually, it just really knocked me for six because it just brought up so much stuff around pandemics, and also I've been writing a book about pandemics. I'd give that piece of advice: never write a book about pandemics in a pandemic,
Thank you.
because for a time it felt like the pandemic. You know, you didn't really know, was this going to become a pandemic? Is this going to just fizzle out? Is this going to, you know? And it didn't. It just kind of became really. And the area that I'm in Spain, we were hit really hard. We were hit. This is a very old area, very old farming area. Um, and quite a few older people here. Um, I felt young, that's why I moved here, so that I could be young. Um, and we were hit really hard, so we lost. My village was actually has been decimated really by the pandemic. So it's been tough, but I, I feel like I've got to the other side, and I feel like in a way I've developed some new skills, or maybe just really refound some skills from the late 80s, early 90s around HIV. And you know, you have to turn everything not into a positive, because this has been a really tough experience, but you do have to look for the kind of things that have come out of it that might have enabled you to become stronger or more compassionate or whatever it is. And definitely I feel like I've reconnected in a way with a kind of time that was 30 years ago. So
Of course, I mean, I've heard as well, you know, people like my parents saying this is the only pandemic that we've ever lived through, and of course it isn't. For a lot of
yeah.
people, HIV has hit quite hard. Do you see any similarities or key differences between the HIV pandemic in the 80s and the one we're in just now?
Yeah, I think there's a huge difference, and the main difference is that this one is airborne,
Yeah.
and the other one wasn't airborne, and I think that makes such a fundamental difference. I mean, it means that people, it means that people are scared of people. You know, your nearest and dearest could become the people that put you in hospital. You know, your children or your family, your grandparents, whoever it was. You know, we became scared, and that didn't happen during the AIDS pandemic. It brought people closer together. People became very close together. People formed groups. People formed support groups. People formed real kind of friendship circles of intimacy. Because pretty early on in the AIDS pandemic, we knew how you could catch this thing and how you couldn't catch, and actually how difficult it was to catch. It was incredibly difficult. But with this pandemic, it's been someone coughing in a room, you know, and how long does it linger? And you know, so that's been really different. And I think that's made everybody scared. Whereas in the kind of AIDS pandemic, the rest of the world just went, oh, it's just those people over there that are going to get it. We're all right, which was obviously bullshit. But they did say that. But I mean, in this one, we all were like, we could all catch it. We could all get it. And, you know, it's like if you're HIV positive, you know, I was constantly sent texts from the government saying, you are clinically, like private texts, and he'd sign them Matt, like not Matt Hancock, he'd sign them Matt, as if he was as if he was sexting me or something. And I would just think, would you stop sending me bloody like terrifying things, telling me that if I catch this, I'm going to die? It's like, at least turn me on, do something valuable here. So, but you know, it's been tough. But I think it's been tough for everybody. So, in that sense, you know, I hope that they'll. And I don't mean this to sound like I'm some kind of old hippie in the mountains. But I really hope that there's a process of healing after this, because I think definitely for young people and for very young people, this is going to have been incredibly traumatic.
Yes.
And kind of terrifying.
Yeah, I feel like there's been a start of a process of healing almost before it's finished. Like there seems nostalgia to it, which is already sort of here, even though we're far from over this. And I don't know whether you've seen It's a Sin out there at the moment, but it's made a huge impact here in the UK, and it's still that process of ongoing healing for people who are living with HIV, you know, 30, 40 years on. So I think have a huge difference. And
I think as well, it's like people, because everybody's scared. You know, it's like you know, there's this thing that, you know, if one person in the room is scared, then there's always people that can help them not be scared. But if everyone's scared, everyone panics. And I think that people want to get out of this as quickly as we can, and people want to book holidays and get back to normal. But the truth of the matter is that this is going to scar us for a long time. We're going to need to be really kind to ourselves and kind of come out of this slowly. And not book a 2-week. Don't come to Spain because you've got to wear a mask everywhere. It's going to feel really odd for you to wear a mask. You know, it's legal. It's law that you wear a mask. Every child over the age of 6 has to wear a mask here all the time outside. So you'll wear a mask to the edge of the beach. You know, it's like we are not out of this yet. We have, the vaccine has been brilliant. It's been like a complete godsend, or goddess send, which if you, whoever you want to say that to, but you know, I think it's been a tough old gig, definitely.
So you're writing a book about pandemic at the moment. How is that going? And has it been informed by the coronavirus pandemic, or you're writing it before?
Oh no, completely. It's like it's been. So the book is called "A Working Class Family Ages Badly," and it's kind of like the story of my life. How did I end up here in the middle of nowhere in Spain, a country I'd never visited before? How did I end up here in the mountains? How did I, you know, about HIV and about kind of drugs and stuff, and so in a way, I was writing through the prism of a new pandemic, so it had to come into it a bit. But by the same token, it's not about this pandemic, but it was, you know, I could write through this pandemic. I could use this pandemic, and the way that my village was impacted reminded me of a gay club back in the kind of early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, where people would just disappear. You know, people would be out dancing one week and the next week they wouldn't. They would be in the hospital, and the week later they'd be dead. You know, it reminded me of that, of people just disappearing and houses being closed up here and shops being closed up and boarded up. It was... so yeah, I've just literally, I think, I don't want to touch wood, I think I've just finished the book.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's like a year of really intense, really emotional writing, but it's been a complete journey, and so yeah, I think I've just finished it now. So I've got a week or so before I hand it in, but yeah, and then that's out next February.
That's amazing. Congratulations. It's such a big effort, isn't it, to finish a piece of work like that. So I can't wait to read it when it comes out. Yeah. Thank you.
The thing is that the only thing that I really like doing in the world is writing books. So for me, it's like the most wonderful thing to do. Although I've not enjoyed this one, really writing it, but it's still, I enjoy the process of not enjoying it, if that makes sense. I am in the process of it. So yeah.
I know exactly what you mean. I'm in the process of writing my own just now, and it's my first one. And
congratulations!
Thank you. And it's difficult. I understand what you mean about that process. And talking about you moving to the mountains, it brings me on to your chapter As We Grow Older, which I read and really enjoyed. And you talk about your move from London to Spain. And for many people, especially myself, I'd be worried about leaving London because it's such a vibrant queer community here. Yeah. And how was that process for you, moving away from that to seemingly in the middle of nowhere where I imagine there isn't a huge queer community? How was that for you?
No, there's no community. There's literally no one. It's not that there's not just a queer community. There's like literally no one. And
Right.
there's a few people around me, and the few people around me are Spanish. And they, you know, so I didn't speak a word of Spanish when I came. I'd never been to Spain before I bought a house here. So it was all a bit weird. But I suppose it's like I thought about this before this event tonight, and I thought, yeah, you have to balance somehow needing to be near to community. And I've spent 30 years needing to be near to an AIDS ward or a sexual healthcare clinic. And that's been really tiring. It's been really tiring to have to be close to, you know, where I get my bloods done and my HIV meds. And I love my queer community. I love my queer trans community. I mean, literally, I mean, I get to speak to them every day on Zoom. So it's like, but you also have to have dreams. And I had dreams that I could be the kind of person that might go off on my own and live in the mountains or live in a forest. And I had those dreams, and I don't know where they came from, but I just kind of got to this point where I just thought, like, I moved here when I was 50. So I did it when I was 50. On my birthday, on my 50th birthday, I moved here. And I just felt like, and although I cried quite a lot on that first day when I got here, and just thought, what have I done? I really missed everyone. I missed the Tate Gallery. I missed shopping. I missed Soho. I missed people. I mean, but I woke up the next morning and I just thought, this is where I'm meant to be. This is where I'm going to write books. And like, this is like, I can't remember how old I was when I came out, but you know, we ran that queer housing co-op in London in the very early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, that kind of time. And, you know, I've been around my kind of community my whole life. And it was like, I suppose to a certain extent, I just felt like this, you know, like I'm 50 now. I want this part of my life to be about my dreams and about how far I can push myself and what I can maybe become and who I can become. And I wanted that to happen. And I think it's a really fine balancing act, because I'm on my own. I recognize the stupidity of it, because I go for days and days and days without seeing a single person. It's just me and my dogs. But I really wanted just to write, and I really wanted to be on my own. And I'd always felt like, and I'd always lived in a city. You know, I'd always lived in London principally my whole life, apart from going to university. And then I went to Brighton. So it wasn't like, you know, so I'd always had like queer, artistic, creative community around me. So I didn't know that I could do this. And now I love it. Now I don't know that I could ever do anything else. So people come here to see me, and I love that. I love being a host. I love people coming to my house and having good food, and we sit and chat and go for nights. I love that. But you know, this is now my place. And also, as you get older, and like, I know it's deeply unfashionable to admit to getting tired as you get older, because we're told, you know, we're always shown someone who's 90 that can do yoga. It's like, if they can do it, why can't you know it? But the truth of the matter is that I've lived with HIV for years and years and years, and I've lived with the stigma of that, and also the weight of discrimination about being trans. You know, I was marched out of my job. You know, however many years ago it was. I was, you know, treated badly by people. And it's like, that's tired me out. So I'm tired. So I love having the time now to write and to look after my trees and to plant flowers. I have beautiful gardens here. So I love gardening and doing, like, you know, like I did, my degree was in fine art and philosophy. So I love just like doing bits of silly painting. This is my painting, by the way. I'm a really bad painter, but I still really like the fact that I have time to do it, because, you know, working class people are always told that they don't have time. Not time to think, not time to paint, not time to write. You know, it's always about working. Ever since I was a kid, it was like, what are you going to do with your life? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? You know, you can't go and do art. Who's going to give you a job if you go and do art and philosophy? Well, you know, it's like, I don't even think people even talk to me about philosophy. But I mean, I think it's, yeah, you have to balance up, you know. And I think we can become so tied into that we can't exist without our community. One of my great heroes in life is Georgia O'Keeffe, who said that she really wanted to paint landscapes, and the only way that she could paint big landscapes was to just go out there and do it and be by herself in the landscapes and be there and not have anyone, not have the fuss of stuff. And although she went and spent time in New York and etc., you know, she really was at her happiest at this place called Ghost Ranch in Mexico, New Mexico. And like that had always been my dream. I always just thought, I think somehow, despite the fact that I'm from South London, a part of me, despite the fact that I'm from South London, I'm HIV positive, I'm queer, and I'm trans, and I'm poor, and I'm all those things, there's a part of me that feels like I want to be able to do that with my life. And a dear friend of mine who died a couple of years ago of cancer, we would always talk about having an adobe house somewhere in the middle of somewhere, and I kind of, I've done it. I mean, it's like, yeah. So you've got to balance out having your community, but also the dreams. We will all have dreams, and what are you going to do about your dreams? So
I think that's a very inspiring position and life to have, because I grew up in rural Lancashire, where there is very limited people as well, not quite as remote as you just now, but remote enough. And so going to the city, feeling like I'm in a community, is both overwhelming and amazing at the same time. And I'm not sure now I could ever part with it, but I think there's a real strength in doing that and knowing that you can be okay. Like, I get worried if I need to not be near 56 Dean Street because I'm not going to get, like, testosterone injections, for example.
Yeah.
I get worried that it's not going to be there. So I think there's a real strength in stepping away and saying, I'm not limited by this. Like, I can go and live life. I think that's really inspiring.
Yeah, I mean, I think to a certain extent, like, I'm much older, so I did this at 50, and the day before I moved here, I probably was in central London seeing people, so in a way I was like hugely naive. Like, I'd never even driven on this side of the road. I hate driving. I'm like the world's worst driver. I was only okay at driving at 20 miles an hour around London. So I got in the car, got to the airport and picked up a hire car, and it was pouring with rain. It never rains here, but it was pouring with rain. And I drove down the motorway at, like, I don't know, like 40 miles an hour, just with like tears coming down. So it wasn't like you know, I'd literally gone for, I didn't know that I could do it, but I did know that I wanted to try. I wanted to know that in this lifetime I don't have a partner, so I could wait for a partner to do it with, or I could wait for a friend to, and I just felt like, no, I can't. I just want to step off of the edge. And you know, and I suppose part of it was, you know, I want to step off. I've lived on HIV meds for as long as I can remember now. But when you're on HIV medication, it doesn't cure you. I will always have HIV, so it's like, I felt like I was living an odd life, a life that was on the edge, and I wanted to step off and go and do something. And it has been remarkably, luckily, fantastic. And I you know, I have a tiny queer community here. It's not big, it's really small, but a really tiny queer community, and Zoom, and I think that kind of suffices in lots of ways. And my dogs and my trees, I love trees now. I'm like completely adore having trees that produce pomegranates and olives and figs, and you know, so yeah.
Your posts on Twitter and Instagram always cleanse my it's just lovely to see them, even if I'm not there. So you're in your mid-50s just now, and it's fair to say that when I was reading all of your books, even from a couple of years ago, you've talked about aging and growing older throughout. It feels like there's a common thread there. And also in your chapter, you were talking about loneliness that can come growing older, as a trans and queer person, because often, like, we don't have children, or our families have rejected us for whatever reason. How important was it for you in your chapter, as we grow older, to talk about?
Sorry, I lost you there. Can you just say the last bit of that again?
Oh, yeah, that's fine. I was wondering how important it was for you to discuss growing older as a trans person, as a queer person, and to sort of shine a light on this topic that not many people talk about. You say in your chapter that
Yeah,
we pay a lot of attention to the spaces in your 20s and 30s, but not
yeah.
really, spaces for older people. How important was it for you to write about that?
I think really important. I mean, it's like, I mean, I've kind of always tried to think about what are the things, my work has always been about what are the things that I'm finding uncomfortable or really comfortable. I write about that stuff. And, it just became really clear to me that as I went past, especially when I went past 55, it became really clear to me that people don't understand aging because you only understand aging when you start aging. It only becomes clear to you what it's about then as people stop asking you to do things, or people say they're going to pay you less for doing something, or no one really notices you on the street, or that kind of stuff, that all that starts to really happen. And I feel like it's really important for us to, as queer community, like, I don't know that this is my final move, by the way. I don't know that I won't. I've been talking quite a lot to different people, different friends, about how do we make something queer happen here? How do we make like a collective of houses? How do we do it here, or do we do it there, or what do we do, or how do we ensure that as we age we have a community that can support each other? And I think it's really important because you don't think about it. And the thing about aging is that it happens quicker than you think it's going to happen, and you don't know it's happening. Just one day you wake up and you go, God, I can't do that anymore. I can't get my brain around that anymore. I don't have the energy to do that and to do that and to do that. Like, I've had to cut back on stuff. And I think that, like I said, it's because the government has increased the pensionable age up to 67. Theoretically, I'm 57 now. Theoretically, in 3 years, I would be retired and get a pension, and rightly so, really, because I've worked for a long time. I've worked for as long as I can remember, and I think it's really important for people to understand how this thing happens, and none of us we're never prepared enough for it, either economically or socially or any of that stuff. Don't ask me why I'm having all these thoughts yet I've moved to the mountains on my own. I know that seems like a complete contradiction, but this was something I had to do, and I felt like I'm going to spend my 50s doing this thing, and then in my 60s and 70s I'll start thinking about where I need to be in relation to safety and community, etc., etc. But listen, we don't talk about aging because it's deeply unfashionable. Everyone has Botox now, everyone has fillers, everyone has stuff done to their face. They start doing that from the age in their 20s to not age. People are terrified of aging. Like, I'm not. I was told I was going to die. Many years ago, I was told I was going to die. I was given a slip of paper that was an entitlement to death benefits. And it said at the top of it that this person is not expected to live longer. I think it was 2 years. Is not expected to live longer than 2 years. And therefore, they're entitled to death benefits. I'm still here, 30 years on. So I like getting older. I like the lines on my face. I like the grey in my hair. I like that my body feels more tired in the afternoon, and that actually I think, no, I'm going to let it sleep. I'm going to let it rest. Or I'm going to do, I do like I do like online exercise classes, or whatever you want to call them. And I make sure that I don't overdo it. So like if I feel like if I get tired at 20 minutes, I just stop and turn it off and go off and do something else. But I think it's really important for everyone to understand that it doesn't matter how young Joan Collins looks. She's not. She's my mum. And my mum gets really tired. And it doesn't matter. We can all pretend that we can stop aging by creating a different surface, but it's not going to stop the way it is internally. And it's really important that we be kind to ourselves, but also be kind to older people or people that are becoming older. I definitely feel at 57 I've gone into a different stage of my life. I'm not old. I'm not whatever that means now, but I'm not. But I've gone into a different stage of my life, and I'm embracing it. In my 50s, I've written 4 books. and I have, sorry, these things keep popping up on the screen. It's very annoying. I've written 4 books, and I've moved to the mountains, and yeah. And I do, and the work I do is really exciting. I do really interesting work with museums and whoever else it is. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's definitely inspiring. I get a lot from your writing, and you know, you're continuing to do so. Sounds amazing. I wondered what, if any, effects you feel like transness has on aging. Do you think you would view aging any differently if you were a cisgender person, or do you not think that's a helpful way of thinking about things?
I think realistically we have to be real. You know, when I wrote the essay for the Penguin, the Amelia's anthology that just came out, you know, I'd spoken to people who had been in, I'd spoken to trans people who'd been in care homes, who had been, or trans people who knew trans people in care homes who'd been treated abysmally, who people had stopped giving them their hormones, or people had stopped doing this. And you know, we have to be realistic. There's going to be, like, if I was to go into a care home, let's say I developed dementia and I went into a care home in my late 60s or whenever it might be, early 70s, or, well, I take HIV medication and hormones. So those two things say this person is different. Whether we like it or not, this person is HIV positive and this person is transgender. Well, you know what? There's so much stigma around. We can't kid ourselves that this isn't going to be the thing. That's why I kind of firmly advocate for, you know, let's try and set up. I ran queer housing co-ops back in the, like I said, 30 odd years, maybe 40 years ago now, you know, a long time ago now. You know, is it time for us to start thinking about that again, about communities whereby we can support each other? I'm so chuffed about the place that's opening in Manchester, and there's some different kind of bits and pieces that are beginning to happen now around housing and around kind of support around that. So I think it would be really naive of us not to think that there's going to be, listen, some people are really lucky. They live their life, they don't get ill, they go to bed one night at 89 and they die in their sleep, and they've never had a day's illness, and it's all been wonderful and fine. But that's not the case for most people, and we can't base policy on that. What we have to do is think, where are we going to be most vulnerable? And for us, you know, it's going to be when other people have to look after us. That's when we're going to be most vulnerable. And, you know, I can't bear it when our community is vulnerable. I don't want us to be vulnerable. I want us to be robust and tough and able to protect others. If someone can't look, we need to get in there and swoop in there like trans avengers and protect people in, you know, that stuff really matters to me. It's always really scared me, the kind of the points at which we become really vulnerable in life. So, yeah.
I'm in the process of getting my gender recognition certificate now, and one big factor for that is, at the moment, I'm registered as female, and if I die for whatever reason, that's how I'll die. But that is not how I experience and live my life, and I don't think that's how I should die either. And I also worry, as you said, about when you grow older, you worry that your pronouns are not going to be respected, your name, your medications are just going to, you know, if you're not able, they're just not going to be given to you. Yeah. How do you worry about that for yourself and for others?
Well, I suppose, so like, I don't have a gender recognition certificate because it's my transness. It's always been really important for my transness that I have a birth certificate that says one thing and maybe a death certificate that says something else. I want that journey because that's my trans journey. Yeah. And I think I fucking deserve respect without a certificate. I'm far too old to get a certificate. I don't want a certificate. I don't want to pay for a certificate. It just... But, I mean, of course I worry. I mean, I don't have any children. I don't have a family. I mean, I'm pretty much on my own. Beyond my mum is still here. Beyond my mum, I'm pretty much on my own in the world. Of course, that it's a worry, but I kind of... I don't know. I think that, like I said, I think that me moving here and having my 50s here, this is one stage in my life. And I think then something else will happen that will mean that I'll go back into... I sometimes think, oh, I should go back to England and become like go into politics. and become like a really angry MP and advocate for kind of queer housing. You know, because if you're queer and the chances of you getting supported housing are kind of so minimal. So we've either got to be very rich or have family, you know, or partners. So I mean, it's a tough gig, but I mean, I think it's of course I worry. But listen, if someone gets my pronouns wrong, I'm from South London. I'm likely to say something. If someone does, if someone, my HIV meds, I would fight tooth and nail to, I've been taking those every day ever since they came out. You know, I remember the first day of getting them, because there were none before a certain point. I remember the first day of getting them and thinking, that's a really nice line that somebody said, that I'd be amazing in politics. Yeah, I keep thinking about it, but I'm not completely clear yet. But you know, so I think it's a real worry, but I don't like the idea that our respect, because listen, if our respect relies on a gender recognition certificate, you know, that's as flimsy, that's a piece of paper that can be whipped away from us. It can just be disappeared. You know, awful things happen to older people, so it really matters that somehow we need to get this community, this world, to respect us as people and just give us the space that we have earned. We earn this space by being taxpayers, by being members of the society that contribute in a myriad of ways. I don't want pity. I don't want anyone to. Sometimes people say to me, "Don't worry, I've got your back," and I think I don't need anyone to have my back. I'm the kind of person that can move to Spain on my own, to the mountains on my own, and live in this village where it's pitch black at night time. You know, I don't need anyone to have. I need you to recognise that we deserve not just a place at the table. We deserve our own table in the room, and we deserve respect without a certificate. Get my pronouns right. Get people's pronouns right. Don't fuck about with pronouns. Don't pretend that you kind of got it wrong or you won't. Just get it right. We pay you the respect to get yours right. And if someone ever gets my pronouns wrong or gets someone, I'm just belligerent. I call them the wrong pronoun, and I will do that until I drum the point home. You have respect for me. You know, I pay my tax. Actually, now I pay tax in 2 countries. I pay my tax. Do not think you can mistreat me because I'm trans or because I'm HIV positive. Those 2 things have made me, frankly, fabulous. They're not negatives, they're positives. So, yeah.
The way that you speak about transness and your own strength and your own capability in a world which seeks to always belittle and destroy that is endlessly inspiring to me and others. It's really quite incredible. I mean, when the pandemic hit here, one of the things I was most worried about, apart from catching this awful virus, was having to stare at the walls, was having to live with myself in that space, because I'd constantly been busy. I'd constantly wanted to, I suppose, make myself busy so that I wouldn't have to deal with myself in a room, just me, myself, and I. That was the hardest thing in the world, and you've achieved that. What I would think for me would be the hardest thing ever, and I think that's really inspirational. Yeah. I wonder, over the lockdown, I read your book, Gender Explorers, which obviously speaks to trans kids, and obviously it is a constant inspiration to me to sing young trans people, because I didn't even know that trans existed when I was 11.
Yeah, it's amazing.
What do you, obviously those trans kids will grow up. What do you think or hope the future will be like for them as they age?
I honestly think that the people that are arguing with us now have got no concept of what's coming up. I think they've got no concept of what's coming up, because the arguments that are happening about a world that existed, and that they're desperate to keep existing. And the young kids that are coming up, they exist in this world in a way that we have got no concept of, in a way that is completely, their take on gender, their understanding of gender, of the world in relation to gender, is so exquisitely elegant I just think that I want them just to be able to keep growing. I want them to go through school as themselves, and I want them to go to university as themselves, or go and get a job as themselves, whatever it is they want to do. And I want them to have families being themselves, the kind of family that they want to have and that they have the right to have. And woe betide anyone that really gets in the way of that. That's all I would say, is that woe betide anyone that gets in the way of that, because this younger generation have got the measure of everything that's going on. And yes, we should protect them at all costs. And that's kind of what I wanted to do by the book, really. And in the book, it was to really protect them and shield them and kind of be maternal and paternal, whatever it would be, protective over them. But actually they were like, kind of, we've got this. and so for me, that was like, they're going to change. They're going to change the planet. I mean, they're going to save the planet. Because fuck me, these people arguing in court today about how many of us detransition. I mean, you know, these are tired, tropey arguments that are really harmful, but they're more. I mean, the kind of the dynamic of them is about now. It's not about what's going to happen in 10 years' time. And I know they could change stuff. Listen, I'm not naive enough. I lived through Section 28, and I lived through headlines about HIV and AIDS that said that they should ship people like me off to an island and shoot me because I had AIDS. So I kind of get that. I'm not naive, but I genuinely, having spent a year interviewing young people, I just go, if we can just keep them protected, if we can stop talking about suicide rates and this and that and that, if we can just try and create a really positive environment for them, actually they're going to do the work, because they're so empowered in a kind of, brilliant way. So I'm really, chuffed about that. So that's what I think. I want them to just carry on growing up as they are. And like you, I mean, I had no concept. I didn't even know the word. I didn't even know that I was a thing until I was a thing. So it's kind of like to see them, and for them, a lot of them go, they didn't even know the word trans, because they've just always done what they wanted to do around gender. That's why I call it gender explorers, because they kind of just boss gender around. They make gender fit them. We never had that. We were forced into be other genders, and then we had to fight back from that. And often that was so damaging. Some of these kids have not had that. They've just been able to be themselves, and we must protect that at all costs. So protect that at all. And the parents who are being, quite frankly, monumentally brave and brilliant, and often are so isolated. It's the parents that sometimes, I'm not saying the kids aren't isolated, but sometimes the parents are being blamed by grandparents and the school and social services. They lose friends. You know, sometimes it's a lone parent who's protecting their trans kid in a sea of people that are in a sea of hatred. And you know, God love them. I mean, they're part of my family. They're part of my kind of family, extended family as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so much focus on trans kids just now, and they're just trying to be themselves. And I'm just absolutely staggered, like you, in the nuance and the understanding that they have around this. It's really quite just inspiring to me. Just on a final question for you, just before we finish, and that's, what would you say to people who are older than you, who are struggling just now with the effects of COVID, about being able to live with themselves? You've obviously managed to live with yourself on your own. You're isolated for a couple of days, and you found painting. What would you say to other people who are struggling and don't necessarily have those family networks just now?
Connect with people via Zoom. Just contact people. I mean, I've had a few people do it to me, and now we Zoom. We Zoom every other week, and we Zoom for an hour. Or I would say contact people, reach out to people. This has been a really tough time. This past year has been monumentally difficult. And like I say, I lived through the AIDS pandemic. This has been so intense, because it's separated us out, it's put us into rooms, it's been awful for bullying, for so many different, you know, like the incidents of kind of, you know, I can't think of the words now, but like every kind of crime that could happen in a domestic violence, every kind of crime that could happen domestically has happened and has been intensified. You know, and it means that those kind of people that are stuck in already bad situations, it becomes intensified because you are stuck in that bad situation. But I would say reach out, make connections. In my life, the one thing that I've always done and not been ashamed to do or afraid to do has been to reach out and create communities. And a community can just be that you connect with 3 people online. Contact me. Contact other people. Don't care. It doesn't matter. No one's going to think bad of you by saying, look, I'm really, you know, I'm feeling a bit whatever. Can we just, can we set up a group? You know, like I do lots of writers groups now where we just literally, we meet up and we chat about work. Sometimes we talk for an hour. Sometimes we talk for 15 minutes. But just having that connection is really important. Community, if you're queer, if you're trans, and I know this sounds like a huge contradiction, because I live on my own in the middle of nowhere. But I had this Georgia O'Keeffe dream that I had to live out. But I think it's really important to connect with people. So use the internet for the, you know, to me it's coming to its own. I sound really old saying that, but like Zoom and the way to connect with people and Instagram, like whatever it is, connect with people and make communities. Different communities, other communities. We are different. We are queer. We are, you know, however you see yourself. If you don't want to like the word queer, I completely get that. But we are a minority. We are marginalised, and we need to have communities. So I would say be proactive. And I know that can feel really tough and really scary and really vulnerable, but I get contacted a real lot by people saying, can you give me some advice on writing, for example, and or would you be open to mentoring me? And I think actually, and then I contact other people and do the same thing. And I think we have to do that in a way. That's what I would say is the most important thing to do. And take time out. Think about what you want to do. Like I always take time out to be in my garden and to be outside and to do. Maybe it's going for a nice walk. Maybe it's, I don't know, it's doing something so that you make sure that you look after you, because being trans is going to be tough enough. Transitioning is a tough gig. Going for a pandemic and, you know, it's like all these things are really there to kind of, to test us. So I would definitely say reach out to people, and it will only make you stronger by doing that. I know it might feel tough, but it will only make you stronger.
Well, I'm going to go out now and have a walk and try and spend some time in the garden, because
do
best thing to do. But thank you very much, Juno. It's been incredible to speak to you. And again, if you want to order any of Juno's books, like the ones that I've got here, you can do so on the Jessica Kingsley Publishers website. And also your next book is out early next year, is that right?
Yeah, it comes out February the 10th. Yeah.
February the 10th. I'll put it in my diary as a pre-order.
Brilliant. Thank you for being such a lovely interviewer.
Oh, no, my pleasure. So Opening Doors London, just for anyone who wasn't with us at the beginning, we have a trans and non-binary group that meets every month to help with loneliness and isolation. If you want to be a part of that, just drop us a DM or info@openingdoorslondon.org.uk and sign you up. Thank you so much, Juno, and have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Goodbye.